Hello, and thank you for joining us on this week's Old School Q&A. I'll start by introducing the couch. We have on your, I always get this wrong, your right, we have Mod Bruno.
Hey.
Mod Munro.
Oh.
And I'm joined on my right, your left, by Mod Ash. And I'm your host, Mod Gambit. So I'm going to kick this off by saying thank you to everyone for both their feedback and their patience with the Kebos release. We've had a lot of feedback from it, and we're working on the things you've been saying. But I think most of all, we're just thrilled with how it's gone. Overall, the content has been very well received. Lots of people enjoying the farming guild in particular, among the other content like aerial fishing. So thank you very much for that. I think we can agree it's been, well, largely a big success.
There's always things after an update this size that you're going to want to reconsider in the light of traffic, like those doors in the farming guild,
those things.
and some of the balancing in the light of what people get and how people perceive it. But broadly speaking, an update that size, it's not unusual to spend a couple of weeks afterwards tweaking stuff. I remember Chambers of Xeric, one of the biggest things that came out of the first week was quick make a storage facility. So having launched it, I then got to spend the next weekend making a storage facility for it, so we could have that shortly afterwards.
Which, storage facility is very helpful.
Well, yes, and no regrets about doing it, even if it would might have been nice to have had in the initial launch. I don't feel that 1 week without it was a killer. Mm-hmm. So while I can't claim any credit for the development of Kebos, apart from the big compost bin, I am very impressed by all the guys and G who worked on it.
So sort of just to clue you guys in on what the plan is over the next day or two, we're going to be collating all of the feedback that we've received about Kebos. You may have seen the poll blog, which went live yesterday. We're going to take the feedback from that and discuss it amongst ourselves, and also the feedback regarding Konar's drop table, which is obviously the hot topic right now. We're then going to publish a revised poll blog, which will include the proposed changes, the revised version of the proposed changes, and the proposed changes for Konar's table all in one post, and then look to get the poll done early next week, I imagine.
Based on what you guys say about the post, yeah.
Other things that are coming, just so you're aware, Mod Ed is currently working on a new quest. Not the big one, obviously we all know Song of the Elves is coming, but a much smaller one in comparison. It's going to be a free-to-play quest. The idea behind it is to sort of tie Zaya a bit more to the mainland. We've had feedback saying that the two feel a bit separate.
That is a big ocean.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is to get the player sort of talking to Veos, do some tasks for him, and then he'll introduce the players to Zaya.
The players are now curious about how a free-to-play quest involves Zaya.
Right, so I think the idea is for Veos to sort of introduce players, particularly new players and mobile players, to the idea of Zaya and explain what it's about, to sort of incentivize them to find out more for themselves. I think that's the idea behind it. Mm-hmm. We have, so you may have seen on Twitter, as part of the feedback, going back to Konar's drop table, I think it was Cloud Badass who, if I can say that
you can.
on stream,
That's fine.
who said he looked over the table and gave some suggestions, and actually that was pretty well received, funnily enough. So I think we've got a straw poll going which compares the original table. If we can bring that up now, if that's possible. The first image, if that's possible. So this is the drop table as it stands. You may have seen in the news post, we made a few changes, namely removing runes. What else was adjusted?
I think we took out the U logs, not initially, but shortly afterwards.
And the pure essence weighting was reduced as well, so it's less common.
Yeah.
I had a player contact me afterwards saying, why are you taking things off? That's nerfing it further. Why are you nerfing it further? And I explained that the things we were taking off were things people didn't necessarily want so much. Yeah. Like, they weren't thanking us for the rune drop. And by taking it off, it made you more likely to get one of the things you might benefit from instead.
Yeah, and the crystal keys came off as well, to just increase the overall value of other drops.
Yep.
So this is where we're at the moment. And if we could show the suggested table from Cloud Badass, and there are a few things about this I really liked. Hopefully it's not too small for you guys to read. But there are things on there which were really popular, like I think Volcanic Ash was in quite high demand, and it makes sense, I suppose, given the location. Well, a lot of the tasks will be in.
Much as I'd have preferred to see us do something involving mining, maybe trading in unwanted nuggets and minerals to somebody on Fossil Island for more of the volcanic ash that comes from Fossil Island, we can just drop it here as well, and I can live with that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the thought process behind this was to have drops which were Iron Man friendly, but not center them around Iron Men, so that regular players will also have value from the drops. And trying to find that balance was much of the thought process behind this.
So I see the runes are back.
Yes, so I think he was going off a version which still had the runes on. I don't think he's necessarily suggesting that we put them back in.
And let's say 2,500 brews.
I can't even
No,
see
it doesn't.
from here.
I think
Sorry, that was not serious.
So, just in terms of to get your guys' opinion in chat, I've got a little straw poll sort of drawn up just to see what you think. Comparing these two tables, is this sort of the direction you guys would like things to go? If not, there's feedback threads on Reddit still, which we're going to look at on Twitter as well. So get involved in the discussion. We'll put that up now just for you guys to see. And while that's going, I suppose we should move on to some questions.
Sure.
Yes.
So I'll hop right into it while you guys take a look at that. We've got from Jay's Rule 24. I think we've already addressed this. Can we get a fix to the doors of the Farming Guild?
Would you like to talk about how you've gone
Yeah,
about it?
sure. So I spent about a day this week fixing those Farming Guild doors and went through various iterations with some invisible click boxes and then something else as well, which wasn't so great. And then we finally decided on the doors are now just open, and there's invisible blocking in the way, so you can try walk towards it. And if you meet the requisites, then you'll get walked through the invisible blocking. And if you don't meet the requisites, you'll be walked back out and told why. And if you're coming through from the other side, so say if you've boosted your level to 65 to get into the mid-level area, and you're walking back through, you can just walk straight back through as well.
So people wouldn't be able to do things like mithril flower their way through or be shoved on the PvP world with a... Okay, jolly good.
Yeah.
Okay. Just in case you aren't aware what this is about, I think the problem initially that was raised was, I think it was particularly the case shortly after release, a lot of players were trying to get into the Farming Guild and can't do so all at once. So should that be fixed with this change?
Well, yeah, so getting into the Farming Guild, we fixed with moving the Skills Necklace teleport and the Farming Cape teleport as well. So they're now loading you inside the guild, whereas this was more to address the fact that the doors inside the Farming Guild themselves were a big bottleneck, and they really were. So that's changed that and should hopefully fix it this week.
Jolly good.
Excellent.
Thanks for dealing with that.
Yeah, it's fine.
So a question from Boom Saw. They say there was an interesting discussion about how well received the Farming Guild has been, but it points out that other guilds don't hold up quite so well. What does the team think about revisiting some older guilds, such as the Ranging and Cooking Guild?
I've heard positive discussions about that sort of thing around the team, although no details about what in particular would be done to those guilds if we were to do it. I think we got slightly bogged down in why the Crafting Guild is such a great place for your training your mining.
I suppose I could see sort of things that are like the contracts you get in the Farming Guild, but for the various different skills. So maybe that's something we could do. I'd definitely like to do it. Obviously, the Farming Guild has set a really nice standard for what guild content can look like.
I look forward to seeing what one looks like in the Prayer Guild if we consider the monastery to be one.
Yeah, and I suppose not so long ago we added minnows to the Fishing Guild.
Yeah. Minnows, yes, sorry, totally misheard you there.
Yeah, so, we're not averse to changing them in the
No,
future.
quite. And let's face it, the Cooking Guild is a really handy bank.
Yes, that is true.
So the results are in of the straw poll. In short, I think, I can't make out the numbers very well, I think 45% would like a mix of both the table suggested by Cloud Badass and the current table. 43, I think that is, prefer Cloud's suggestion. And very few of you would like the current version to stay as it is, so that's pretty loud and clear.
Marvellous, they won't be too upset if it changes then.
Oh, although actually a lot of people are saying it didn't receive a lot of votes. Is it possible?
Do you want me to read it on the proper straw poll?
What was
If we
the
could-
total number of votes on that one, please?
37.
I think 37. That's probably not a representative number.
I'll read it.
If we could, yeah.
What's a good idea?
That's fine. I'll keep going and we'll get that sorted for you guys. Sorry.
You say there's a problem with voting in some countries or something.
I'm not, I think it's because I used strawpoll.com to make that rather than the other one that we normally use.
Okay.
That could have been part of the problem, but we'll get that fixed for you guys.
Certainly, the other one's easier for me to read from over here.
Yeah,
I'm having a little trouble today because I tried on my glasses last night after a very nice evening in the pub, and they're not quite aligned right anymore. So I'm slightly struggling with this.
Oh, as an addendum to the is that the right word, to the guild question, I saw someone saying we could add something like, for example, the imbue for the Archer's Ring to the Ranging Guild, for instance, for engaging the activities there. And I thought it was quite a nice way to move something out of the Nightmare Zone shop to somewhere relevant to the item.
So you'd go shoot the archers up the towers, maybe, or
Sure.
maybe click on that bullseye thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not sure I want to send them to do that.
Maybe something more thematic in the Ranging Guild once we have a think about it, or various other guilds with imbues is always an option we could explore in the future.
Very tempting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so while we sort out that straw poll, I'll move on with the
Chat now if you want.
questions. Well, it's going to go up in chat now. I'll give that some time to be voted on. Venom Candy asks, are there any secrets in the game waiting to be found similar to Crack the Clue or Corrupted Armour? Which I thought was an interesting question. I don't know if there's anything along
Well, if we
those
tell
lines.
people about them, they're not very secretive
Yeah.
anymore.
This is true.
Well, I think they'd like a yes or no. Is there something they could be looking for? I do not know of any such thing.
Nor do I.
Personally, I think, though we haven't added any for a very long time, there was a thing involving the collar of that dog from Veos.
Yeah, I think there's a few.
But people did find that.
Yeah, I think there's a few very small Easter eggs.
Yeah.
That
remaining
is a
that
very
people-
small Easter egg.
Yeah, as in, like, a line of dialogue if you talk to certain NPCs and things like that.
Yeah.
But nothing on the scale.
Does anyone know where the mightiest tree in the forest is?
Try to remember which one it is now.
And has it changed?
I'm not sure.
I remember Kieran speaking about this actually, and he did do something with it, but I can't remember what he did.
Excellent, because well, I wrote that thing a very, very long time ago, and it's nice to think that he's updated it.
Yeah, he definitely updated it. So, but I can't remember which way he went with it.
I think someone in the chat has got it. Yeah, that's well, I won't spoil it for anyone who didn't get it or doesn't know. You have to find out yourselves. So the results of the properly executed straw poll are in with 2,000, almost 200 votes.
Ooh, good
2,200 votes,
viewership.
which is much better
Thank you.
than 40. The results are much the same, actually, as it turns out.
Yep.
About 44% of you want a mix of both, and the rest of you prefer cloud suggestion, which is fair enough. We're gonna look at that and take it into account.
I like that those 40 players apparently were representative to
Yeah,
within a
actually, as it
percent.
turns out they were spot on.
It's pretty much spot on.
Yeah. So
Data work.
Well, whoever you were, congratulations.
Very representative.
So the next question from Brightful asks, can we get a message in the chat box for when the Kronos plant increases the growth of our crops?
If you have a lot of crops, I can see that becoming quite annoying.
Especially, doesn't it roll per patch or per type of
I think it's per
state?
type of...
I think it rolls per type.
Okay, so it should only be maybe 2 or 3 messages every 5 minutes, if it's at most, right?
I would think so. I'm not 100% sure how it actually does what it does in the end. It was Kieran that put that in place, so
Yes, I remember him talking to me about how he was going to do it, but I'm afraid I don't know the details of it.
Okay. Well, we'll have to make a note of that one then and ask Kieran, I suppose, when we get the opportunity. Like I said, I think from my understanding it should be, well, I don't know if I'm in the right position to say I think it should be possible, but I understand that
Why not?
It is by plant type, and I think they all advance at the same time, so maybe. Ellis wants to know if there's an ETA on the Hosidius rework. Difficult to give the timing on that one. We're trying to sort of fit it in between all of the other things we've got planned.
Its graphics are not, the mapping work is not yet ready for dev to work on it, and by the time they will be, we are likely to be hitting QoL month time when you might reasonably expect us to do a lot of QoL work as we have in the last few years. If we say QoL month has been postponed a bit so we can do the Hosidius remapping job, I'm not sure that would be a great move, although you're welcome to say otherwise. I'd be interested to see what you want to say if it isn't 1111. So yeah, we haven't really confirmed that one, but it's something we definitely want to do. Mod West is very keen, I think.
Yeah.
And we are definitely going to find a developer to do the code side of it when he's got his map in place.
Yeah, he's certainly working through that at the moment, I believe.
Yep.
3 Lefts wants to know. Well, they say the new 2x2 Lisman Shamans in the mulch area still jump when you're standing next to the wall. They want to know if it was done on purpose or if we'd change it.
I've heard the dev on that one say it was on purpose due to them being a different size and therefore having different movement restrictions.
Okay. So yes, that is intentional. I've seen a few people asking that, so now you know. Sync says, can the expert mining gloves work when mining amethyst? I don't see a reason not to, and it would be a very nice QoL for Iron Men who need the arrows.
Sounds good to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
It's not a metal, but I mean, you're still a miner. That's an expert.
We can be flexible about exactly what the thing's willing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, sounds like we'd be up for that one. Question in chat, someone wants to know what tea Mod Ash is drinking.
Tea, Earl Grey, hot, with milk.
So from Box Terrier, they want to know our thoughts on making superior Slayer creatures more common for Konar tasks. This would offer a slight increase in XP and make the Eternal Gem and Imbued Heart something you can grind for directly. I'm seeing lots of no's immediately in the chat.
Well, let's not worry about that one then.
No, yeah.
So probably not.
That's a nope.
I've got a duplicate question in there. Go to the next one. I can fix that. Reckons they have a, a solution to the Blue Dragon Scales problem, saying we should be able to use a knife on the Blue Dragon hide and turn it into scales. what do we think?
Well, I like it better than picking stuff off the floor.
Yeah.
I like most anything better than picking stuff off the floor.
Yeah.
Thematically, it does seem to
Yeah, I mean,
fit as well.
Yeah.
like scale a fish, you're basically just knifing through the fish and it gets rid of the scales, so
Yeah.
it sort of makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, yes, that will go to the cooking guild, get the new potato peeler item and shave your blue dragon hide, yeah.
The thing is, would you be able to just constantly use the same dragon leather? Because you'd have to do something to the dragon leather.
Presumably there'd have to be a chance of it degrading or something, or becoming cow leather instead.
Yeah, or it gives you a certain amount of scales and then
No.
disappears, kind of thing.
Okay. So
I think if you just chop the thing up with a knife, if we wanted to do it, or shears or something.
Yeah.
cool. I'm seeing lots of yeses in chat. Seems to have gone down well. Seems like quite a nice.
Next
way
time they'll be
to
wanting
make
to use
that
a knife on a blue dragon and get the scales off it like that.
Or the new shaver on the blue dragon.
Well, there's something not dissimilar to that when you splash neem oil, or whatever we called it, on the polypore dungeon creatures in RS3. If you splash from your jug of neem droop squishings onto the creatures, some of their scales just fall off. That was intended as a low-level thing that low-level people could be doing if they wanted to wander around a high-level area. Odd design consideration on that one.
Yeah.
But shaving the blue dragon doesn't seem as unreasonable as using a saw on a unicorn to get the horn
Yeah.
for Pures.
And then we've also got the similar with the Mortmire fungus as well, where you cast bloom on the swamp crabs,
Oh yeah,
and then when you kill them,
I can't believe we did that.
yeah, and then when you kill them, you get Mortmire fungus as a drop.
Huh. I didn't know that.
That is very cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Divine Zaros says, can the Abyssal Sire be included in the Abyssal Demon task assigned by Konar, where she asks you to slay them in the Abyssal area? Sort of poorly worded, but I think we get the idea.
Well, have I got news for you? Because coming tomorrow, you can.
Yay.
So enjoy killing sires.
All right, there we go. Well, there's one of the spoilers for the update tomorrow. Well, spoiler, but yeah, that's coming tomorrow.
Yep.
So I think that was pretty much the last boss. One of the last
Yeah,
bosses, if
I
not
think
the last
that is
one.
the only boss
The
you
only
can't
boss
kill
you
in a
can.
Konar
Yeah.
task.
So
So we made it even.
yeah, well, there we go. Trance says, can we get a chat box message for when Hespori has fully grown? Maybe a toggle in case there are people that wouldn't want it.
It doesn't grow that often. I'd hope they'd be fine.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It does take a while to grow.
It's not like it's going to get grown a few minutes later again.
No.
And the farming code already has a few special messages like maybe I should check on the onions I was growing for Lyra and things like that. So sticking in another one of those saying, I think my Hesperi might be big by now, wouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
Mark J asks, would it be possible to auto-remove reported or banned accounts from your ignore list? It's an interesting one.
Sounds like it's going to need the chat system to start looking up the status of everybody on your lists periodically to see if see what their account state is, which is not information the chat system's necessarily got all the time. And I am not optimistic that the engine team's going to be able to offer that feature, making the chat system be able to look up the banned status of every account on your list. At least not anytime soon. People often ask, well, mobile's out, why aren't they producing all the other things we've been asking for? The thing is, mobile's out, but launching something doesn't mean that you can stop thinking about it as a developer. Just as Kebos is out, and you guys have quite a few suggestions about how to improve it still and fix niggles about it and doors. So the engine guys are still doing quite a lot of work on mobile, but I do look forward to them being able to do more things in future. I just don't really see this one being one of the quick wins we can get anytime soon. Sorry.
Fair. So Waston asks, could there be a Barbarian Assault high scores for both gamble count and queen times? This would enhance the already thriving BA community. Is there a thriving BA community? Is that a fair description?
Yeah, there's people who are very dedicated to BA, and there's people who just go there once and are like, I've got a torso, bye. I imagine this is sort of the same thing as Boss KC High Scores, where it's locked behind other things, so maybe.
Well, it would be exactly like the Boss
Yeah.
KC High Scores, and if we could do those, we'd probably do this with it.
Yeah.
Okay. I imagine maybe on the proviso that we make it unavailable to people who leave on wave 9.
Those are the worst.
Yeah.
VXL wants to know, can we get the task weightings for Drakes and Worms when assigned by Duradel? We've had a few people asking for this. I'm not sure how we feel about giving that to the players at this point.
I'm pretty sure we've given such info before, but it has, of course, just changed.
Yeah.
The table changed a little to put those on. We don't necessarily put out detailed balancing info straight away for people to optimise their experiences without any exploration or investigation of new content. But we'll give you some time. I am personally leaving it for the devs who actually wrote the thing to reveal this stuff rather than leaking their all their secrets behind their backs, even if I'd probably get a lot of social media karma for doing so. That's kind of their prerogative.
All right, Empty Bag asks, could we get a name purge sometime in the next 6 months? I know it's a lot of work, but there are so many unused names and finding a decent name is getting tough. My understanding of how it works is there's no set, it's not a regular consistent thing that happens every X months.
Definitely not, sadly.
So, and I think it's largely support who handle that, if I'm not mistaken.
Solely.
So it would require sort of discussing with them. I know there's a lot of demand for things like getting the display names of banned accounts and that kind of thing, which typically occurs on a case-by-case basis at the moment. But it's something we can look into, but no sort of promises at this stage, I think, is the right sort of
It's
approach.
not a small thing for the support team to do. They have to put a lot of their staff's resources on it, which of course takes them away from all the other things you guys need them to do. So they don't get to do it very often. So far they haven't set a date for when they'll do the next batch. When they do set a date, it'll be in a news post on the front of the site as usual. So it's not going to be a secret that sneaks up on you, especially if you follow us on Twitter. At Old School RuneScape, go on. And at RuneScape, why not? So, and of course, from our point of view, we love it. Like, people get the names they want. We get to sell bonds for display name changes. I think everybody wins. But it still does take a lot of resource time from the support team, so they can't just do it whenever we'd like them to. And I gather the influx of new members after the mobile launch has kept them really quite busy lately, which may not be helping for this. Obviously, it's good to have new players.
Yak799 asks if we can make farming contracts scale based on the length of time taken to grow each crop. They say it's a bit overpowered that a magic tree or fruit tree can yield the same reward as a watermelon or herb patch. How do we feel? I mean, I know we sort of discussed the idea of balancing farming contracts in some way. They're very, well, a lot of people are saying they're very powerful for Iron Men in particular.
Yes.
There's a lot of yeses in the chat for this one.
It depends whether they're wondering whether they're expecting it to go up for the long ones or down for the short ones if we were to do the scaling.
Yeah, or a bit of both.
It sounds reasonable to me, but I guess we'd have to discuss it more with the relevant devs.
Well, I wouldn't be committing to redesigning somebody else's project without them knowing about it.
No.
They might get knocked, and they also might know something about it I don't.
Yeah, for sure. I believe it was Moded who made the farming contract system.
Oh, was it? Cool.
Yeah.
Oops, I've been directing people to Kieran. Sorry.
Umari asks, could we add a notice board to the Tier 3 section of the Farming Guild, preferably somewhere close to the bank? This notice board would display the status of all your farming patches, like the Geomancy spell currently does, but without any cost. The bank in the Tier 3 section looks great and is very nice for training bank standing skills, and for avid farmers it'd be great to be able to constantly check where my patches are ready. There was an edit to this question, which was to balance them they could be locked behind either lunar diplomacy or for a fixed cost of X amount of runes that would normally be used to cast Geomancy.
That does help.
Yeah.
Which I think is much more reasonable.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of straight up just putting a notice board there. It sort of makes the spell useless at that point. But if you paid a lot of runes, like the Portal Nexus, that's not too bad then.
Thing is, the Farming Guild is pretty useful.
Yeah.
The idea that we need to put something in it of that nature to make it more useful is not really that pressing, because people go there anyway, and we would like you to have the stats for Geomancy and eat up nature runes using it. But so I do like that there was a cost on the thing, but we're not desperate to drive yet more people to the Farming Guild because they already go.
So follow up. Sorry, a follow up to the question. Sorry, I didn't actually put the questions together myself. A follow up to that was from Nest9 saying, wait, no, it's just the same suggestion. Just add a cost based on the Geomancy runes. Right, I'll skip that. The Dubu guy asks, is it possible to have Guildmaster Jane, it's more farming guild questions, to have Guildmaster Jane tell us how much of each contract we have completed? Currently she just says you've completed X contracts. I'd like to know how many easy, medium and hard contracts I've done separately.
I don't believe so at the moment.
If we're not tracking it, then
Yeah, I don't
We
think
would-
it's being tracked. So
ooh, well, that's a shame. If that were changed, then yes, she'd be able to tell you the stuff.
as far as I'm aware, it's not being tracked at the moment.
Okay.
If it were, Dollars to Donuts says we'd have output it somewhere.
Yeah, I think so.
The total's tracked, but individually it's not. So
Okay. I suppose that would mean if we started tracking it would be a case of she wouldn't retroactively know how many had been done. It would be a start of starting from zero.
That's right. Players are kind of accustomed to that with our counters, and with some exceptions, they're generally accepting of it because in the longer term, they get the counter, and it's usually better than not having it.
Hex Hunter wants to ask if we can make the inventory icon of the Zamorakian Hasta more visible. He has a hard time finding it in his inventory or equipment screen.
he should look harder. I think it's fine as it is now, since it does look like every other spear Hasta, and it's also different from the spear. So
I can somewhat sympathise. I've had not trouble, but occasionally I'll spend a few extra seconds trying to find it in my bank, but I don't know if it warrants a full change.
and people do always complain when we change icons. So
Okay.
that's one of the reasons why I'd be against it.
I don't know how straightforward it is to get something that's more recognisable out of the Zami Hasta anyways. This might be one of the issues there.
It's a stick with a pointy end.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of them. It's getting awkward.
Boogie the Hedgehog wants to know if there's any word on implementing the teleport from the Lunar Isle Bank to Relica for those who have completed the Elite Diary. It's still more convenient to only have the hard diaries done.
Not at present, but if we're working in that area for the Fremnik quest that's been discussed, maybe we could take a few extra things along the way.
Okay. Zay Woe says, it's very small, but the Hydra Slayer helmet isn't a recolor because it has the additional fins that extend from the eyes to above the helmet, which none of the other recolors have. If the Hydra's helmet can have its own model, can the other helmets have their own models to more accurately represent the boss it came from?
They naturally can, if the artists are available to change those things that players already own and may have opinions about.
Yep.
And we wouldn't be offering to have both versions of the helm in the game for eternity so that you could switch between them on demand. So, you know, have to all want it or not. And frankly, changing the appearance of things people already have has usually led to more upset than happiness, because people can get very attached to how things look, especially if it's their principal outfit.
I do want to take a question that I see in chat. It's come up a few times now, and I've seen other players asking about it. It's one of the things we're going to discuss tomorrow as part of the Kebos sort of balancing and changing discussion. But they want to know if we can buff the Dragon Hunter Lance. It's quite a hot topic at the moment, so can I just sort of get our thoughts out at the moment for the time being, sort of where we're at with the Lance? My understanding is currently it's a 20%. It's 20% extra against dragons in accuracy and strength, essentially. Whereas the Dragon Hunter crossbow is 30%, I think, in each of those. Well, how do we feel? What do you think?
I personally think that by no means is a weak weapon. It's definitely got its uses. It's at some places like raids, like a budget scythe. That's what I've seen. That is quite useful. It's also very useful for things like rune dragons. So wait a little bit more, see if people still think it's really needs a nerf, then talk about it, I'd say.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of mixed responses in the chat.
Straw poll?
Yeah, we could straw poll that.
Ooh, sorry, I don't think they were expecting us to say that.
Might take a little moment. I suppose the question should be, well, should the Dragon Hunter Lance receive a buff?
A buff or a nerf or neither or both. Yeah.
Should it be buffed? Should it be nerfed? Should it stay as it is?
There's always the option of making it buffed, but only against a certain target.
Yep.
Although that may not be what they're looking for.
Yep.
I suppose that is an option for the people who are concerned about ranged being the most effective against the alchemical Hydra. If we made the lance more potent but against the Hydra specifically, we wouldn't necessarily be making rune dragons a lot better than they already are.
Do its mechanics work out well for that kind of thing?
The mechanics get a bit trickier to manage when you are meleeing the boss.
Mm.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not the place we'd want it.
Yeah.
I think the options please with the straw poll.
So, how should the Dragon Hunter Lance be changed? We'll go for buff it, nerf it, leave it as it is, I suppose. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boil and mash and stick them in a stew.
Yeah. Covers all the options there. So.
Cool.
I'm out of tea.
Oh no.
In the meantime, Swemmer says, there's quite a wall of text for this one. They say, it might be a little late, but what do you think of the of a Karen Diary award, which would increase the points from the tithe farm? At the moment, points start when you have handed in 75 fruits, for a maximum of 25 points per session. My suggestion is to change that limit. Medium could start the count at 70 and give a total of 30 points, with 65 and 35 respectively for the hard diary. Another option is to keep the points at 25 as a maximum, but start the counting earlier. I won't read the rest, I think that gets the point across.
There's some stuff there I'd be glad for people to be able to get more conveniently, specifically the Zamorak grape blessing thing,
Yeah.
which is vastly underpowered, and hence their requests earlier in the chat for more Zami wines from the Konar. Let's not ask where she's getting them from. And also the Drickler's can, you know, if that thing became cheaper to use to the point that it was really, really accessible, that's not the end of the world, really, because you've still been to the minigame, you've played the minigame, now you've got a lot of watering can, saves you filling it from things. I think we can live with that.
Yeah, that watering can's a bit confusing in that now you have this watering can, and to use it, you need to get more points to fill it back up.
Yeah, Drickler's a funny guy.
Yeah.
Knows about how to make farming patches, apparently, for the sake of trolls in other quests. Yeah, I wouldn't mind if the points were easy to get. I would be cautious about the XP is all.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to touch the XP rates of that.
That seems fair. So the straw poll results are in for the Dragon Hunter Lance. We asked if it could be changed. If it should be changed, and 7% of you want it nerfed, so I think that's probably off the table. 37% say leave it as it is, and 56% of you would like a buff.
Finding people who would like a buff has not usually been difficult for us.
No.
I suppose the real question is the form that buff takes, and against what creatures, or creature specifically, which is something I guess we'll discuss more tomorrow.
And it's if we feel that it is required after looking at some of the data for it as well.
Yeah.
After all, if the mandate were try to make it more useful than, say, the twisted bow, that would be understandable since it ought to have a use, and yet incredibly powerful if we went and did it.
Yeah.
What else you got?
I have a question from Rehab, who says, and it's on the topic of the, not mine, that's the user. They're also on the topic of the Dragon Hunter Lance, and they say it appears to be quite large in size, which has them thinking. Even if it was kept exactly the same, it currently is same as it is in terms of its stats, effects, attack speed, etc., but had an added ability similar to a halberd where it could hit an opponent from one tile away. This would bring it slightly closer to the Dragon Hunter crossbow in more situations. I think that's the long and short of the question. Could we add a attack distance tile from the lance, because it's a long weapon? A lot of no's in chat, so immediately I'm
I
thinking
get
probably
that, but yeah, it's a bit random.
It's also, yeah.
You don't see that many people out with a halberd.
Yeah.
yeah, does
No.
that make it actually that much more useful anyway?
If anything, it might make it less useful because people are used to just running to the spot where the NPCs are. So.
Okay. So I think if we were to change the lance, we'd probably look for other ways to do that. But thank you for asking. Voice Breaks says, can there be a dedicated Australian world for the Wintertodt? The Blast Furnace world is fantastic, and the UK and US players are able to play Wintertodt on low ping, while Australians and New Zealanders like myself are struggling.
You don't actually need a themed world to be able to do it. If you just those themes have no significance in the game at all. But we can write the word Wintertodt on one of the Australian worlds that doesn't have an existing theme, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Seems quite fair.
You just have to hope people go to that world. You could solo Wintertodt, to be honest, but yeah, it's not as good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just being reminded we're adding 7 new worlds tomorrow. I believe those are all for the Blast Furnace, if I'm not mistaken.
Not quite. We're adding 7 new worlds, members' worlds, by the way, and we are also putting Blast Furnace Dwarves on 8 members' worlds. Not necessarily the same ones. So that's due tomorrow. We hope that'll help a little with the crowding. We're a bit limited for how many more we can put on the list, I'm afraid, at the moment. And also, the place we'd particularly like to have more worlds is currently Australia. Trouble with that is that we have only about 10 out there to turn on, and while the sysadmins are aware that we'd like some more, there's some maintenance they've apparently got to do to rejig how the hosting there works in the first place before they'd be putting more things in it, which makes sense really. Otherwise, if they do it as it is now, they just have to maintain that again a week or two later. So you should actually be seeing the maintenance work take place in the next couple of weeks. After that, hopefully the sysadmins can move on to start putting more worlds there for us, although I can't promise that. I do not know enough about their operations to give you details. But they know we want it, and I think that would help.
Yeah, and one of the worlds we're adding tomorrow is a 2K world, or one of the themes is a 2K world, is it?
One of the 7 new worlds is a 2K world in the west coast of the USA, where there currently isn't a high-level world. I mean, there's I think 1,500, but there isn't anything above that, and we'd like to add one. World 100, 428 I think it'll be.
Okay, so that's it for the questions we had from, asked previously. I'll head on to the chat questions. Actually, if whoever's on chat, I don't know if it's the mod we have here with us or the one upstairs.
I think it's Mod Sweden, isn't it?
I think it's Mod Sweden upstairs. If anyone's listening, more chat questions would be appreciated. We've only got 3 at the moment, so... So, I can ask it very slowly, if that helps, but Kinjello asks, can we add a Loverken transport minecart to the new area, making it a bit easier to reach?
No one likes mapping those, but I did write it expandable.
Yeah. That seems like a good thematic way to get another transport to the same location.
Yeah, and make them more useful. There's even a one-off payment option so that you can pay once and never have to pay again to travel on that dwarf network.
Yep.
Little known thing, I named the chief of that network after a friend of mine who is, the Miriam dwarf outside the bank in Loverken, the one where you go to unlock the network in the first place. She's named after a friend of mine called Miriam, who looks a bit like that and isn't very tall and really likes trains. Couldn't resist.
Fair enough.
So that's a third of our remaining questions gone. We'll find something to say. Don't worry.
There's one in the chat about a Last Man Standing update. So we would like to. We're not short of ideas for that. I think Mod Archie gathered quite a few, and he wasn't the only one. To do them, or at least do a thorough job of it, gonna take a while. We are not able to offer that right now. Also, that's not the only thing we'd like to look at. We promised in 2018 to add more features to Bounty Hunter, and I would like us to deliver on that promise, hopefully in the first half of this year. And also Chambers of Xeric. We'd like to finally deliver on some of the suggestions that people have had over there, like Vespula springs to mind. Like, while there's no law reason why she should be restricted from interacting with the contents of her room until a player walks in there to watch her do it, or kill her while she's trying to do it, yeah, we know you don't like that, so we'll do that. Change it, I mean. And various other Chambers of Eric things to make some of the unpopular rooms that you currently aim to skip less horrible or more rewarding, so that they, to balance for how unpleasant they can be. That's something we'll be hoping to put out more details about in the next week or two. But, you know, Last Man Standing wasn't the only thing needed some reworking, and I imagine you could list, or will be listing, lots of other things you'd like reworked. Last Man Standing's in the backlog of things we can do. I think we're going to take Chambers of Xeric a bit sooner than that, though, because we can probably address more about it more feasibly, especially with QoL month coming up, which is going to take quite a lot of the team's time if the last few have been anything to go by. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ash. Well, I'll give a reminder then. I've just been reminded to do it myself. For anyone who wasn't around at the beginning of the stream, I'll update you on our plans for Kebos balancing and changes. There's currently a poll blog out which went up last night, and you'll see some of the proposed changes there. We're going to take that one and your feedback and have a discussion between ourselves using the suggestions tomorrow, with the aim of having a revised poll blog which would include revised changes from that, but also rebalancing for the Konar drop table, which you can expect to see on Friday, with a poll to follow shortly after. So that's where we're at with the Kebos changes. Going back to the chat questions, we have: can we get a buff to the seed box, considering how many seeds are present in the game? The fact that the seed box can only hold 6 unique seeds feels a bit weak.
You know, I don't think I ever read the code for how that one works, but if it's expandable, then maybe it could be an unlockable expansion. Maybe not. Maybe something that comes out of the guild, or something you do with Grickler's points. He knows about funny watering cans, so maybe he knows about funny bags for your seed.
Yeah. Seems like it'd be a good addition, considering just how many seeds now, especially if you are wanting to do lots of farming contracts, you really need to have in your bank.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think you and I were talking the other day about a seed vault in the farming guild, and
Yes.
the possibility of being able to access it from other patches being an obvious thing people might like in future. They seem amused by the word seed. Seed.
I really do like the idea of the seed vault. It's quite useful because I see myself constantly going from the farming guild to the G to buy more seeds.
Yeah.
But then I can't be bothered to keep them, so I just drop them anyway. Because my bank's full.
I'm never going shopping with you.
Yeah, I was about to say, my bag's just full of loads and loads of seeds at the moment. So
Not because the bank doesn't have enough slots, but because I'm lazy and I don't tidy it.
Oh.
I think the bank slots are fine. People just hard.
unless you're an Iron Man.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of players in a similar position, because it's been a very popular suggestion, and it's something we'd like to do.
Well, the idea that, I mean, if they were up for us taking it beyond just the seed vault in the guild and letting it be accessed from near the patches, that could be of a fair bit of help to people on their farming runs. And maybe if the guild were the only place you could put things into it, then it would be a higher level reward feature rather than something that changed the whole skill from the bottom up.
Yeah,
Just a
very
thought.
reasonable to me. So our next question says, I think this is from Twitter, please give Konar the ability to assign Zuck and Tsar. How do we feel about that? Lots of why nots in chat, lots of no's.
Yeah.
It's hard to know how they feel
I
actually.
wouldn't mind it, but I don't feel strictly very much want that. 'Cause I mean, you can really only assign Tazars to one spot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The
Sort
only thing I have about it that's a bit tricky as well would be obviously the Konar drop table rolls off of every kill you do while on task. So if you're killing everything inside, say the fight caves or Inferno, you'd be seeing a lot of loot dropping on the floor, especially because there's a lot of very high level monsters in there. So your inventory would certainly be interesting at the end of those runs.
New money making method.
Yeah.
Very different, especially if you got a resource drop like for some food.
Oh, for sure.
Of course, they might consider that to be a reasonable reward for it, but they don't seem to be begging for this one.
No, I think probably keeping the Tsar tasks assigned where they are is not the biggest problem.
Also, when Konar's function includes spreading people out across more places in the game, having her send you to a place where people just go anyway isn't, like demonic gorillas, isn't something we're pushing.
Okay, so it sounds like we probably wouldn't go ahead with adding those to Konar's list of assigned tasks.
They were quite split and we're not keen.
No.
We can probably find something else to be doing.
Jossie9 has a suggestion, which is adding volcanic gloves, which, when worn, would make smelting cannonballs 2 times faster. I didn't read the end of the question before before reading out loud. Shall we move on to the next one?
Well, we can comment on what they're saying about it.
I mean, I know we did speak about potentially adding something to the POH which would speed up the smithing of cannonballs.
The cannonball making room suggestion was quite popular at the time. The blast furnace was also suggested for that kind of thing, with requirements on them so that this would not be available to, say, low-level people.
Yeah.
Right, well, I'm being strongly hinted to draw a straw poll up for this one, so I suppose we'll do it, chat. We'll ask the question, should volcanic gloves be added to Konar's... Oh, I didn't finish reading this either. Added to Konar's drop table to speed up cannonball creation by twice the amount.
Question mark, you're missing a
Omega
question
lol.
mark.
I don't think we're actually going to go ahead with this straw poll, probably.
I think we might, with the way he's typing this one.
Yeah.
I think I'm being trolled here, so we can...
No.
Silverlugia asks, they say, I'd like to suggest a way to display chompy bird hunting hats in the POH, perhaps a head mannequin in one of the empty corners of the skill hall. I think that's fair enough, actually. I mean, it's an achievement you wouldn't otherwise get to shout out about much.
Whether we'd be able to put something else in there, so it's not just, this is a chompy hat mannequin.
A sort of helm display unit.
Yeah.
Just bear in mind that it will need a different version of the thing for everything that can be put on it, rather like the cape mounting rack.
Yeah.
That can get very big given how many hats are in the game that people might want to show off.
And there's a
Whereas
lot
if it was your chompy spot, then that would be a lot more manageable for us.
Yeah.
So the straw poll sort of went ahead. You're still voting. It's a pretty even split, so I think we're going to go with no on volcanic gloves, which double your cannonball creation rate.
The no votes are split though, so yes, it's taking a strong lead.
Yeah.
Well, it's between no and Hecker's no.
Well, that's the danger of a 3-party system.
Yeah, and somehow knows it. Was it 50?
Oh, well, now it's a dead split of 50-50.
How about you make them twice the speed, but you only get 2 cannonballs instead of 4?
That's some clever balancing. I like it.
Still twice the speed?
Right. We've got a couple questions left. So this one says, can we change the jewellery box shortcuts back to the old ones and assign the new key to the Farming Guild? Am I reading that correctly or understanding it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're understanding it, but you're reading it
Probably.
correctly.
So it was moved because obviously if you have a list and then you put something on that list, everything under it
right, I'm with you
will
now.
shuffle down. So
Yeah.
there's not really much we can do about that unless we put it like on
Well,
the
their
corner.
suggestion is to put it in the right place in the list, but have the entries on the list not be in ascending alphabetical order of...
I mean, I suppose that would then that mean we have to do the same for any other new teleports we add to it as well?
They would probably expect that because they do not want to have to learn new shortcut keys, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I understand some people have been turning up in Miscellanea who did not want to be there as a result of this update.
I think the Grand Exchange was too big.
It's good for you.
So,
I don't think we've answered this one yet. We would be able to do it, but leaving...
Yeah.
Bear in mind that in time you could learn a new shortcut, Whereas if for the rest of eternity, Old School's got a list with a very weird looking order that's a little harder for anyone else to learn in future, because new people do keep coming into the game, that's not ideal. And in the same way that when we start adding lunar spells, and always put them at the bottom out of level order, so that you wouldn't have to move where Vengeance was. That was also not ideal. People couldn't find where we'd put Geomancy, for example.
Yeah.
So we'd prefer not to have a rule that everything that exists now stays and everything else just gets piled up at the bottom out of order. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's a case of either we leave it as it is and you'll get used to it within like a couple of weeks, or we change it and make it look dodgy, just so you can not have to learn a new shot.
I mean, their proposal is that we reprogram the thing so that they can have a customised option, and then they can set any shortcut they like for any entry on the list. We might be some time on that one.
Yeah.
It could be done in the same way that Maz wrote that menu that lets you customise the F keys for all the side stones. I don't recall her getting that one out in a short period of time, and it's not that she's slow or anything either. It's just a huge thing to handle, especially with the large number of options on the thing. So it would take a while. Was that an explanation you didn't need?
I think the explanation was fine.
Yeah.
Just the, well, we'll move on. We'll move on. So, time for another question. Just about, we have made it to the end of the stream, so managed to pad that out, thankfully. We've got a question saying, can skill capes more consistently allow teleporting to their respective guilds? As it stands, about half do and half do not. Personally, I'd be happy with all of them being able to do it, in addition to whatever else they do.
Many of them would.
So, yeah, it would have to be polled, obviously, and if you guys are up for it, I suppose we are. Unless there's any objections.
I'd like to know if there's still like the current boost that the skill cape gives, or just a buff onto skill capes.
I didn't catch that, sorry.
I'd like to know if they'd like to just make it a straight up buff to the skill capes, or replace it for what's currently in there.
They often ask for it when they feel that what's currently there is immaterial or boring. We should probably check that there's nothing that, too many teleports to the place would give you a massive advantage of some sort.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I was trying to think which ones were missing teleports, actually.
Woodcutting springs to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other ways of getting there. I think, for example, there's a minecart parked not that far outside.
Yeah. And the skills necklace takes you pretty much there as well.
Also that.
I don't see anything wrong with adding it as long as it's not breaking.
Well, I think if we're done here, any announcements you need to plug before we go?
None off the top of my head, other than the ones I've mentioned at the beginning and shortly before now. Well, just keep your eye on the news section of this website. You'll be seeing a revised version of the poll blog that went up yesterday, which will include adaptations of those changes, but also the revised Konar drop table suggestion. And expect to see a poll on all of that early next week, following your feedback. Otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone on the sofa with me this week, and we'll catch you next time.
See you.